So, having spent the vast majority of my career in the digital world, so to speak, software, electronics, and the Internet of Things, so when I joined Gentherm a year and a half ago, my LinkedIn network lit up and folks are going, well, isn't Gentherm a mechanical and thermodynamics company? What's a software guy doing going over to Gentherm? So why did I make this change, this shift? We're going to talk a little bit about seismic shifts today. But first of all, for me, I've always been motivated by being at the center of a game changer. And certainly with the wave of changes coming to the automotive industry, especially with the electrification of vehicles, can't think of a better place to be. There's a lot of excitement going on here. And, you know, when I published my abstract, I got approached by a number of employees at Gentherm saying, hey, Matt, you know, if you're going to talk about systems, let me tell you what systems means, what's the S in thermal management systems. And that was a great dialogue. And really what we're going to talk about today is, you know, changing that paradigm of what systems mean. You know, how can we bring those game-changing products and experiences to our customers and consumers? And what I'm going to talk about is that in order to do that, there's a way to be highly successful without, say, having to reinvent our past, or this is another way that I say this is creating a new element on the periodic table. Sometimes it happens, but it's not the only way it happens. And we don't need to look out into some vast new territory or market to innovate very often. But what I'm going to talk about today is looking at expanding what I call the real estate or beachfront property, or in our case, with the electrification going on, and how we can bring thermal management systems as a center point or foundation in a digital and connected world in new and creative ways, so that we can bring significant breakthroughs to our industry, our customers and consumers. So I'm going to start things off by talking about someone outside of the thermal systems industry. I love this example, Chamberlain. It's a garage door opening company, or is it? As you can see from the pictures here, you know, it's, I don't know, it's about as commodity as you can get, I think, looking at the garage door opener on the upper right-hand corner. This is maybe a snapshot of Chamberlain some years ago. Let's look at where they're at today. So if you go to their website today, you see things like we have here. There's very little mention, if any, about the traditional mechanical elements, shall we say, of a garage door opener, but they're talking about digital services, right? Providing new capabilities and, in essence, some life-changing services. For example, forming a partnership with Amazon so that you can have your packages delivered in a secure way inside your garage. Package theft from people's front porches is a big problem. Some people live in climates where the weather's very bad at times and during the winter. So this is a new value that Chamberlain has brought to consumers through digital services. The center point of their website about a week ago was a camera in the garage door opener. And by the way, a camera is not a brand new piece of technology, but it's being applied in a new way. And what Chamberlain is doing in this case is utilizing their real estate in the garage, where they have a commanding share of that real estate to bring in new services and values proposition to the customers. By the way, in case anybody was following the news, they were recently acquired by a private equity company for a nice multiplier on their revenue. So good success story there. But now let's take it back to our industry here, and I want to talk a little bit about our company, Gentherm, which over the years, Gentherm has been fueled by providing thermal components into the seat, the steering wheel, and the battery pack in the vehicle. And now, if you look at our mission statement above, it's really become about this drive to create exponential value for our customers and consumers by bringing these extraordinary thermal solutions into play. And we're building this on this foundation, as we talked about the EV transition, being experience and human-centric and providing some value in the OEM space. And so how do we get from, or how are we transitioning from that picture on the left-hand side, which is this traditional component and hardware space into this experiential and value add space. And what we're going to spend the rest of the presentation talking about is essentially this paradigm shift about defining what is a system. So with that being said, I want to jump into two examples, real examples of things that are happening inside of Gentherm in this area. And so I think we were at the conference last year, we talked about climate sense. I want to bring to everybody here this fun cartoon or comic strip that we use to talk about what the future of the cabin and the experience inside the cabin can be. And by the way, at the core of this whole experience, the underlying technology core, it's about providing thermal comfort, thermal therapy. The key is thermal, right? But in this case, the whole idea behind this fun cartoon is that your car knows what you need. It knows your state of mind, your stress level, the state of your body. You know, did you just go for a run or you're all sweaty and whatnot? And so now the question we're asking ourselves is, well, how do we, this is a very ambitious experience, by the way, how do we do it? How can we actually realize an experience like this, which is likely going to involve advanced sensors, a fair amount of software, artificial intelligence, and then building that experience using the steering wheel and the seat, which we have a very nice footprint in the market today. How do we stitch this all together to provide a very personalized and intelligent and autonomous comfort and wellness experience in the vehicle? So this is one example. The second one, now shifting to that point that Gentherm resides in today, which is the battery pack. So traditionally, we provide connectivity for cells and heating and cooling, but this real estate, as everybody can imagine on this call, has become quite a hot commodity with electrification and intended broad deployment of electric vehicles. So again, I'm putting forth a vision here, and by the way, Gentherm had a recent webinar on this topic, so this is on the coattails of that, where we can leverage that real estate to bring breakthroughs in battery safety. Read the news today. This is a hot topic. And also better connecting, how can we better connect the EV with a better consumer experience? For example, range anxiety, that's a hot topic as well. How can we provide critical intelligence to apply to our core expertise in battery management, if you will, to enable new use cases, such as rapid charging, sustained rapid charging, early warning for an impending thermal event. I think there's legislation coming out on that. So how do we do this? And I want to dive more deeply into the climate sense example to show you the thought process, how we think differently in this new expanded paradigm of systems. And I think to kick it off, I would say if I were to look at a day in the life of a product company, a technology company, product development engineers, in the last 10 years, there's really been a seismic shift in what companies and engineers and product managers have to deal with in terms of product complexity, okay? So number one, when you start thinking about ambitious goals and being user-centric, like we had in the comic strip above, the complexity of the solution, it's a massive increase in that. Second, I'll claim that no one company or no one team can kind of do it all. The level of collaboration that's now a part of every engineer or product development person or business person's job has increased exponentially. And then we find ourselves operating more and more in uncharted waters, okay? The car knows you. This is what I talked about earlier. How the heck do you deliver experience where the car knows you? And so what we're going to talk about now is how can we really pragmatically approach this problem. We have great foundation and strength in thermal systems at our core. How do we utilize the digital world to bring forth new experience and capabilities to our customers? So I want to talk a little bit about what I call the killer application. Okay, it's a little bit of I'll call it a mobile device industry type terminology, but we all have cell phones. I got one sitting in my pocket here, and by and large, they're similar. Some have better cameras, some have other features, but what really drives and motivates the consumer of those devices is what I call a killer application. What applications drive your world every day? I'm obsessed with the weather, love the weather app. I'm always checking out different weather apps. But the point here is that we don't need to recreate a bunch of new technology. That some of what we can do, and again, cost is an issue as well, because our OEM customers, there's a great cost sensitivity. We can't drive up the cost of the vehicle, but I'll claim here that we can ride on what I call the platform that's coming available in various shapes and forms in the vehicle to develop the killer application. So this way we're not reinventing the wheel on the basic technology. We're focusing on what we're really good at and what is our secret sauce. So the example I have here, and this is going to tie back to climate sense. How can we build and utilize technology such that we can deliver the experience that the car knows you, okay? So driver monitoring systems. This is becoming a very interesting and relevant topic in the automotive industry, and there are plenty of excellent technology providers out there building what I call the platform. And this is 90% of the solution. And again, I mentioned on the previous slide, we have to get used to us providing a minority of the solution. It's really that experience and system that makes the massive difference at the end. So driver monitoring systems includes a camera, a lighting source, and various digital processing. And I'll say that driver alertness and drowsiness detection is a key application that's going into driver monitoring systems. Okay, so this is a given. I'm thinking about it that way. Driver monitoring system hardware is going into vehicles in the future. Okay, so now when I think about this from Gentherm's perspective, again, our expertise is in thermal processing, thermal sensing, and a huge focus for us at Gentherm is thermophysiology. And this is the science between the interaction of the human body and the environment, in essence. So I believe we could, for example, develop the killer application around skin temperature detection. By the way, skin temperature is a key leading indicator of how you might behave as an individual. Let's say I'm hot and I feel like I need to be cooler. There's some leading indicators having to do with skin and other factors, skin temperature, that would allow me to predict, in essence, what an occupant in the car might do to be comfortable. This is in our wheelhouse. This is in our core at Gentherm, for example, where we're taking a platform that exists. We're not adding cost per se, but rather we can, for example, through software, do a different kind of image processing that we are experts in and provide this application or killer app that we talked about earlier to help this system get to know the occupants of the vehicle. And this is our killer application. One of the things that's interesting about this as well, okay, maybe my company doesn't have lots and lots of software developers who know AI and how to do image recognition. There's another piece to the puzzle behind figuring out what your killer application is, and that's partnerships. And again, referred to this earlier is that, hey, as a company that's a traditional hardware provider, for example, I may be delivering 10 or 20% of the solution, and in order to really go fast, I need to rely on partnerships who are experts in, I'll call it, commodity competencies, such as cloud engineering or building iPhone software or whatnot. We don't need to build that capability organically in our company. It's not differentiating for us in and of itself. Again, it's really the application and the experiences. So my fun little picture here on the right is that through a partnership with a very capable digital design firm and some modest investment in iOS software, we were able to build an iPhone and an iPad application that creates an immersive experience for this autonomous cabin. There's a real quick screenshot there. By the way, we did it 5 times faster than we had predicted initially because 80% of that time was finding the talent and ramping up the team. Instead, we partnered and allowed us to move very, very quickly. We didn't give anything up in terms of what Gentherm's core competency is. Likewise, We've publicly announced an investment in a company that does high power cooling and has built technology that's great at cooling CPUs and data centers, but has also found an application for rapid charging in battery packs. This is going to allow us to move faster. That company's been doing research for quite some time in this area. And likewise, another sensor investment that we've done to help complete that intelligence to create that autonomous experience in the cabin. And again, we're moving faster because of these partnerships as opposed to building those capabilities ourselves. Okay, moving along, I think this is the fundamental foundation of stitching all these things together. How do we create the seismic shift and implement it repeatedly inside our company? And a huge element of that is culture. And that's what fuels us. It's the engineers, the product managers, the salespeople in our organization that make this process repeatable and get everybody rowing in the same direction. So I want to talk about 3 elements of the cultural piece that I think are absolutely critical here. And first is what I call outside-in thinking. And it related to outside-in thinking is this notion of thought leadership, right? It's having the courage, if you will, to go get with your customers and paint a picture of what the future could look like. For example, the car will know you before you get into it. Maybe it's a great vision, maybe it's not. The feedback from the customer is extremely valuable in that case. So my example here that we've talked about inside of our company is, so Gentherm, we produce heated steering wheels, not the whole wheel, but the guts inside it to do the heating. And an example of thinking about this in a company-centric way would be, well, okay, we have heating on the steering wheel. How could we grow from that? And there's nothing wrong with that line of thought, but I'm saying that it really needs to be complemented with this outside-in thinking. Okay, what's driving the need, for example, for hands-on detection on a steering wheel? It's the emerging standards and compliance standards that are coming because of safety in the vehicle. So it's an interesting discussion now for us in that we're traditionally talking about thermal in a wheel in this area, but now we have to complement that discussion with, you know what's really happening out there that's driving changes in what's happening in the steering wheel. We can get ahead of the problem and see what our customers are seeing and help them solve problems that way. The second, and I can't emphasize this one enough, is diversity of thought, okay? So our foundation at Gentherm is built on expertise in thermodynamics and mechanical engineering. Wouldn't give it up. It's key to our success, right? But the point here is that if you want to think about, well, how does thermal apply in a digital world moving forward, and a world of autonomy moving forward, you need to bring in that perspective maybe from outside of your core expertise as well. And super important because these ideas about the car knows you, for example, and how we improve safety and user connection to the electric vehicle, they didn't just pop up one day and suddenly the idea was great. It came from the collaboration of a number of people with great perspectives and iteration on those perspectives, okay? So a few examples here of ideas we've either implemented or are talking about within the company. We actually built an advisory board in our company that includes a small number of very experienced, creative, and brilliant automotive industry and technology experts. So we have dialogue between those experts and our management team and our technical experts inside our company. Huge help for us in getting new perspective. The second picture there is a screenshot of our website. We call it Invent. Think about it as a social network for new ideas within the company. So we're getting employees engaged on a day-to-day basis. One of the key pieces of feedback that I've gotten from employees in this area is, hey, I'm an engineer over here in this part of the world, and I'm actually talking to a salesperson now. I don't get to do that as part of my day job. And it's making connections within the company, for example, to enable engineers to be more customer-centric and customer-aware. It's been a huge benefit of that dialogue. Last but not least, I've been keeping my eye out on the investment community. There are a lot of or a number of funds, I should say, that are starting to pop up that are deviating perhaps from the traditional VC type of technology fund, where they exist to matchmake companies with adjacent technologies. We'll call it established corporations or mature companies with startup companies, for example, who have new ideas in the adjacent space. I give a few examples there. You've got Plug and Play Silicon Valley, NextGear out in Israel, Autotech out on the West Coast of the US, and these companies are really driven to connect established companies with new thinking and technology. Really expand your funnel and the amount of ideas that are coming in. And last but not least, this is probably one of the toughest pieces of this, is that it's a call to action for every one of us to create the bandwidth to innovate. It doesn't mean you have to create an invention every day, but it's about carving off in your teams, carving off time on your calendar every day to solve problems, think about where the industry's going, create new ideas, be it helping the company to run better or ideas for new products. This is really hard. In fact, I have to sit down with my assistant every week and make sure that I have time blocked on my calendar. Otherwise, I'll be in meetings all day and stuck in the whirlwind. I recommend everybody do this today. It's tough, but it's going to be liberating for you, I guarantee it. Okay, so let's close here. I'm glad, super excited. I go through this stuff really quickly, but good, I'll open up time for Q&A. But in closing, okay, the word here is build on your beachfront property. I love this picture, right? It's, I can't say how lucky I feel to be part of a company that's at the frontier, if you will. It's on the beachfront of the EV and electrification that's happening in the automotive industry today. So we talked about 4 topics, right? It's in context of redefining our paradigm of what is a system, right? 10 years ago for us, a system might have been an actuator plus a control circuit. Now, the stakes have grown tremendously. A system that consolidates those core thermal capabilities with existing technology today. Doesn't have to be a brand new invention. Cameras, thermal cameras, sensors, we talked about all those things earlier, can come together to bring exponential value to our customers and wonderful experiences to consumers. Right? Thermal is a fundamental connection between the human body and the world, as well as various components of an EV to that system, and eventually the consumers that drive those. So the point here was, we don't need to reinvent our success. We don't need to create yet, find a new hydrogen atom on the periodic table of elements. It happens, but so much is out there by combining the digital with the foundation and thermal systems. So, and also we don't need to look at vast new territory. I call this the heated dog bowl principle. I think every year I get an idea about building a heated dog bowl. We don't have to venture into the pet market, for example, to find things that are right in front of us in the automotive industry. And so 4 points that we covered are the seismic shift, right? We have to redefine our systems paradigm. It's also about identifying the killer app, right? This seismic shift puts us into a product space that's vast. And focus on what we are and what you are good at, your company is good at. How can you take your foundation of expertise and create the killer application in conjunction with other technology that's out there? Third is forming and leveraging partnerships. Can't do it all. You can't even do most of it in most cases, right? Things like web services and big data, these are all very, very exciting topics. I get it. A lot of them have been packaged up so that everyday users can use that technology. You can even go to Amazon Web Services and Google today to start developing on a machine learning platform, and you don't have to be an expert in the guts of machine learning, for example. Find those partners out there that can align with your values and deliver those parts, those missing pieces or expertise you don't have in your company. And then last but not least, it's that innovation culture, right? That thought leadership outside-in thinking. Think about how your customers view the world. What problems are they facing? Start there. That'll help you understand where that next big opportunity is. And then combining that with that diversity of thought, you need a lot of ideas to really come up with that good one. And it's not just the good one may require refinement. Having that perspective of core thermal systems experience, combining that with digital expertise and expertise in adjacent markets or in your customers' markets, it's tremendously liberating, and it's helped us inside of our company to really come up with ideas that connect in the product space. So those are the 4 points that we covered, and I just think the opportunity for us is absolutely tremendous. The technologies of the Internet of Things, cloud services, digital services, they're all reality in the automobile, and the footprint is growing. So it's our opportunity to seize that technology treadmill that's coming into the car and develop the killer application for that. We don't have to invent it ourselves. So in conclusion, I think we're at the center of an amazing change and opportunity in our industry. And I think if we all keep in mind the actions above, this is a great place to be, and the best days are ahead of us for thermal management systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That was a very eye-opening and a refreshing presentation, giving us from a top-down perspective about thermal and systems. Perhaps let's start with a top-down look at the industry and your seismic shift comment that you made. How does that impact the way the organization itself is structured, like your organization structure? And how does it impact the way you look at an automotive thermal system?
Right.
Like, do you have new glasses on?
I do. In fact, it's an interesting paradox because I draw on a very old guiding principle. It's called Conways Law. And there's lots of ways to interpret Conway's Law. I'll give you my interpretation is that, create the experience first and then figure out the structure that you need to build to create that experience. If you really have a clear understanding between the thermal pieces, the digital pieces, so on and so forth, and how those things will work together, the org chart, if you will, flows from that. Now, having implemented this inside of Gentherm, we've definitely made some changes as a result. What does it take to build a experience-centric organization? And for example, systems engineering, that is the combining of hardware and software, and thermophysiology, kind of risen to the top of the organization because of that. We see that, for example, knowledge of thermophysiology is key to deliver these experiences. So Conway's Law, think about the experience first, what it is you're trying to build, and then you can work the org chart from that.
Got it. So as you're looking at the new structure, you talked about killer apps. How much open blue sky are you looking at from a killer app perspective? How many of the killer apps that you're looking at are automotive related? And how much of the killer app you think will be leveraging similar knowledge but move out of automotive?
Yeah, I think so. So I think there'll always be contributions from both spaces, but one of the main reasons why I'm here today is I believe that we don't have to go far from the foundation to find the killer app. And that was really the point of the discussion. Yes, maybe heated dog bowls are in our future, maybe not, probably not. But I think occasionally that adjacent exploration can yield something, but the point is that given that the world is changing, given that the world is moving to electrifications, thermal systems, I mean, it's just absolutely critical element from so many vectors. I'm really a strong believer that that killer app is really going to be, building on that physical location in the vehicle and the knowledge we already have and combining that with the technology to build the experience. I don't think we have to go far from the foundation, is my point.
Got it. What are your thoughts on the role of AI in delivering some of these killer apps?
Yeah, absolutely essential. I think, does AI have to be involved in the killer application every day? Maybe not, but think about the connection to your digital world. For most people, that's this, right? And every one of us and family carries some aspect of, you've integrated your life into your digital world. And I think a really key call to action for us is better connecting the car with the human, especially when the paradigm of what is a car is shifting. I remember there was a Reuters conference where the guy from VW said his neighbors asked him if his EV can drive in the rain or will it short out, right? With electrification happening, there's that enormous opportunity to integrate our digital life into the vehicle and to really make it personalized and feel like it's yours, just like your digital life. That's where AI comes in. There's a tremendous amount of data out there that can help, and as you guys who know AI data, having a lot of data is key to making that successful. I think with the advent of platforms like TensorFlow and SageMaker, by the way, I'm a AWS racer guy, so even simple guys like me can program, do machine language programming. There are platforms out there that make it usable. You don't have to be a PhD in machine learning to use it. So to really create that integration of everybody's digital life, consumers' digital life with the vehicle, I think it's going to become table stakes in the next 5 years. We should all be learning more about AI and machine learning at some level. We don't have to learn the foundations. We should learn how to use it as an application. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things you shared in your talk, which surprised me, you said 80% of the innovation would be coming from software and stitching, and about 20% from hardware. Is that focused on Gentherm? Is that how Gentherm sees this? And can you give us a little bit more color on perhaps what the future looks like with that type of a split?
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to make clear on this is that the context of my comment was in creation of these new systems and experiences, right? So if you look at the example I gave with ClimateSense, a vast majority of what's going to go into that system is software related. Absolutely. Does that mean innovation on the what we call today, actual thermal system and components is dead? Absolutely not. So really, at the heart of all of this are thermal systems that will continue to develop and evolve. I'm just saying in the context of the broader scheme of things, we have to pay a lot more attention to software. It's moving very quickly and it's a key component of what we're doing at the product level for sure.
Got it. And one of the applications that I think about, and I see questions coming in on this, is the balance between cabin comfort versus battery range. So as we know, thermal management is the biggest consumer of energy outside of driving itself. And that's the biggest ding in the range as well. And so do you see a role of AI and software playing in there? And can you talk a little bit about how you see the balance between cabin comfort, customer comfort, and battery drive range?
I think it's about, so let me set the context on this. And it goes back to the digital life comment earlier. It should be a personal choice, okay? And it goes back to better connecting the vehicle. I know that when I'm on a stoplight and I've got a big Hemi Dodge Charger and I floor it all the time, tires and gas are gonna wear out quickly. In fact, tires is probably a bigger expense. So I think that the key here is to give the users the same intuitive understanding, right? So when we talked about ClimateSense here last year, we showed that because we can do localized heating and cooling, that we can save tremendous energy just because of that and the intelligence we put behind that. But now we can take it to even another level if you bring AI into it. Thermophysiology says there are differences in human body composition that make a difference in comfort. And sex, male or female, this makes a difference in comfort. So if you know who's in the car, that gets to the intelligence piece, you can do a better job, if you want, of saving energy. One of the things we talked about with ClimateSense is a set of drive modes, right? So building the notion that, hey, if I've got the family in the car, and let's say I live in Silicon Valley and I'm heading up to the mountains, By the way, I know people whose solution to this is just handing the family a bunch of blankets and they won't turn on the heat. In the car, they know that if they hit road trip mode, that the car is going to increase range. And it's through the science of thermophysiology, will keep you just comfortable enough, if you will. But some people like to be pampered. You see a lot of commercials on TV these days of, the family goes away on a camping trip and mom says, hey, you guys go on, I'm gonna sit here and pamper myself in the car. So I think it's a matter of choice. And giving consumers that choice most certainly involves artificial intelligence, AI, and related tech. So I think it's gonna, again, it's popping up, and it should be that, if I want to drive a lead foot type of trade-off and burn up my tires and gas, we should offer that choice, but it needs to be intuitive to the user, and that's where the AI piece comes in.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, and I'm in one of those boats as well. I own an EV, and when I get in the car in wintertime, I actually don't turn on the heat at all because it's cold outside, so I already have my winter jacket on, I have my hat on, I have my gloves on, and I want the longest range possible on my battery.
Yeah, we don't want anybody to ever have to think about that anymore, and that's the point of the AI piece.
Yeah, absolutely. One of your core competencies you mentioned is skin temperature detection. Is that one of the technologies you're thinking about leveraging in this? And can you add a bit more color and what direction that's headed? Absolutely.
I'm going to geek out a little bit here. And for Dr. Jarrett, our head of thermophysiology, I hope I get this right, but I'm pretty confident. Really, there's a key element of thermophysiology that we're focused on called behavioral thermal regulation. And this is where you get into the intelligence piece. There are other types of thermophysical behavior, but behavioral thermal regulation is important because once your body has tells in terms of it's about to be too hot, your brain's going to realize it's too hot and you're likely to reach for the controls. And really what we're looking for is those markers that say, hey, somebody's about to do something because in 5 minutes or 60 seconds, they're gonna be uncomfortable. So we're looking for those markers. Skin temperature is a very important marker in that equation. It's not the only one. It's one I use as an example here because it plays well into the camera sensor space, but it's an important piece to the puzzle, not the only piece. Again, looking for those markers that say, hey, behaviorally, you're about to do something.
What do you think about the role of non-automotive related, but perhaps non-automotive related applications? So in one of the previous keynotes at Lightyear, they talked about a thermal jacket that you can put on. It's probably keeps you warm in the car, but also could be you can get out the car and continues to keep you warm type of thing. How much can you talk a little bit about automotive and beyond automotive?
I think we're always, we know what keeps the lights on in any business, at least in this audience, right? So there's always the focus on the business aspect and the product aspect of it. And I will say that, very often the channel comes up, right? We may have the capability to do something, but do we have the channel to bring a product to market? That's a tough problem to overcome, quite frankly. And using as an example, our investment in this startup company, they started in the data room space, right? Sorry, the data warehouse space. They're doing cooling in gigantic data centers. It's taken them quite a bit of time and effort to adopt what they're doing to the automotive space. By the way, they didn't have a channel. And we can help them in that area. I think it's always interesting to look at adjacencies. Absolutely, we do it every day at our company. I think it more often than not becomes a business problem. How can I channel that technology into a product, into a sales channel, whatever it is, to get it out there? That's a pretty big hurdle to overcome. It typically comes with a very large investment. So definitely open to it, but use wisely. It's a tougher problem than it sounds like on the surface.
Got it. Matt, thank you very much for your time today. Really enjoyed the digging deep into what the future could look like and what the technologies would be playing a role. With that, I will turn it over to you, Mark.
Thank you much, Sudi. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Matt. This concludes this keynote